What people get wrong about quantum immortality. The viral story sounds airtight. In many worlds, every outcome happens in some branch. So as long as a branch exists where you live, you keep experiencing survival. That's slick and wrong where it matters for prediction. First, existence isn't typicality. People leap from a survival branch exists to I should expect to find myself there. In Everett's picture, branches carry amplitudes. Amplitudes squared give weights, the Born rule. A survival branch with near zero amplitude still exists, but it contributes almost no weight to your expected experiences. Your rational forecast should track weight, not mere logical possibility. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Existence doesn't buy expectation. Second, decoherence is a mechanism, not a miracle. When a microscopic trigger couples to a lethal device, the combined system entangles with the environment. Off-diagonal terms vanish for all practical purposes, leaving stable pointer states like fired and didn't. That's branching. But decoherence doesn't change weights, it stops interference. No collapse, no probability boost, just records locked with the measures they started with. Third, survivor bias plus anthropic reasoning seduces you. I'm here, therefore I survived, is true and empty. You only ever observe from branches where observation is possible. That selection effect makes survival unsurprising, conditioned on being an observer, but it doesn't upgrade low-weight branches into high-weight expectations. The update you get from I'm alive is almost zero unless it sits inside a long, independent streak. And long streaks are usually evidence your inputs were wrong, not proof of immortality. Now here's where most people mess up. They treat you like a privileged thread forced to traverse the tree. That sneaks metaphysics into a probability question. In a branching account, what matters is how much born weight goes to each future observer moment that inherits your memories. Even if a branch exists where you live to 10,000, your rational expectation isn't to land there. It's to land where most of the measure goes. And most measure goes where ordinary risks add up. Fourth, the roulette fallacy. Imagine Russian roulette with a quantum trigger. Some branches continue, others end. The naive leap says, I'll only experience the alive ones, so I'll keep waking up. But expected experience isn't a yes-no counter, it's weighted by measure. If survival weight halves each round, your future observer moments dilute exponentially. You aren't buying infinite tomorrows, you're burning probability capital faster and faster. A quick story. Someone once argued they could prove immortality by running a quantum-triggered roulette. I asked, what outcome would change your mind? If they died, no report. If they lived, confirmed. That's a selection trap. One person, one trial, zero statistical power. The positive narrative is guaranteed precisely in the only branches where speech remains possible. Another confusion, more splits as life preserver. People imagine more branching boosts survival. No, decoherence just reveals and stabilizes outcomes. It doesn't mint extra survival weight. Think of measure like a budget. Hazards spend it, correlated hazards torch it. Reckless choices multiply losses. After repeated risks, your survival weight shrinks to dust. Many worlds explains everyday statistics. It doesn't overwrite them with miracles. Identity adds one more lure. If you think identity is a single metaphysical line, you'll try to ride it. The cleaner move is continuity budgeting. Treat future continuers, each with your memories, as a portfolio weighted by the Born rule. Then the immortality pitch loses steam. Tails exist. Typicality rules. Your expectations follow weight. Here's the payoff you actually care about. Believing the loophole tempts people to take dumb risks. Some branch saves me. But if you're making life decisions on that story, it isn't philosophy, it's a bet. And you're losing. The honest fix is simple and powerful. Forecast with weights, not wishes. Optimize the portfolio. Sleep, safer routes, checklists, screenings. To shift measure toward the continuers you'd want to be. That's how you stack odds in the only branches you'll typically meet. The many worlds interpretation, cleaned up. Let's strip away the sci-fi and keep the parts you can actually use. Start with the rule nobody disputes. The Schrödinger equation drives everything smoothly and deterministically. That's unitary evolution. No hidden dice. When a measurement happens, nothing special gets added. The same equation just acts on a larger system that includes the apparatus, the room, and you. Measurement isn't a magic event, it's entanglement widening its scope. Here's the clean picture. A spin in a superposition meets a detector. The joint state becomes spin up with detector up plus spin down with detector down. Then the environment, air, photons, your retina, soaks up which outcome information. Relative phases between those alternatives scramble into an astronomical number of degrees of freedom. Interference between the alternatives becomes effectively impossible. That's decoherence. Nothing is deleted. It's just that the information needed to make the alternatives interfere is now everywhere and practically unrecoverable. Those decohered alternatives are what we call branches. They're not soap bubble universes popping into existence. They're stable, non-interacting histories encoded in the universal wave function. The appeal is elegance. Keep the math. Drop the special collapse rule. All outcomes allowed by the dynamics continue evolving, but they can't talk to each other once the environment has locked in the records. So where does probability come from if everything happens? From weights. The Born rule says squared amplitudes set the measure of each branch. In collapse stories, that's an axiom about chances. In many worlds, you earn it by asking how a rational agent should value their future continuers before they decohere. Two complementary routes lead to the same place. Decision-theoretic arguments, shout out to Deutsch and Wallace, show that if your preferences stay consistent across physically equivalent gambles, you must care about continuers in proportion to amplitude squared. Jerk's invariance root starts from symmetries in entangled states. If swapping equal amplitude components changes nothing locally, you must weight them equally. Refining that symmetry recovers the full Born rule. Different lenses, same conclusion. You don't count branches, you weight them. Now here's the subtle part most people skip. You can't split in any basis you like. The system, environment interaction picks a preferred robust basis, pointer states that survive constant monitoring. For counters, it's clicked versus not. For macroscopic stuff, it's localized, thermodynamically stable patterns. Interference between pointer histories is crushed on absurdly short timescales for big systems, which is why the world looks classical. The basis isn't a choice. It's selected by the interaction Hamiltonian. Also, decoherence isn't collapse. If in principle you could collect every phase carrying photon and phonon and reverse their interactions, you could recohere what looked like separate histories and see interference return. In small systems, quantum eraser experiments do exactly that. Hide which path info and fringes bloom, reveal it and fringes die. For macroscopic records, recoherence requires microscopic control over astronomical details. Practically impossible, but conceptually allowed. So we treat branches as separate worlds for all practical purposes while remembering the universal wave function never literally fragments. So what does this mean for you? You're a physical process that becomes entangled with outcomes. After a measurement, there are multiple observer states, each with definite records and the same memories up to the split. Before the interaction, you face self-locating uncertainty. Which record will this continuer read? The rational forecast, if you keep your preferences coherent, is to weight those continuers by Born measure. That's how you talk about which one is me, without smuggling in a metaphysical coin flip. And this is exactly where the immortality pitch breaks. Existence of a survival branch doesn't grant typicality. Weights do. Repeat hazards, and survival weight multiplies down. Many worlds doesn't give you a privileged thread to ride. It gives you a budgeting rule for expectation across all continuers with your memories. The same calculus that produces stable lab statistics tells you not to bank on miracle tales for your future. One more clarity pass. Collapse models tack on a special rule for measurements and leave fuzzy where measurement begins. Many worlds avoids that boundary problem by applying unitarity universally, and letting decoherence explain classical records. But that elegance comes with responsibility. You can't freeload on classical probability language and then ignore the born weights. Decision theory and invariance are your receipts. They justify treating amplitude squared as the thing you should plan around. If you remember nothing else from this cleanup, hold this compact model. Unitary evolution everywhere. Measurement as entanglement. Decoherence selecting pointer states and killing interference. Born weights governing rational expectation over your continuors. Once that clicks, the temptation to count branches fades. You stop pretending existence equals expectation, and you start forecasting with the weights you actually have. That shift isn't just tidy philosophy. It's the difference between telling a cool story and making correct bets about your life. Decoherence, the hidden machinery behind branching. If many worlds is more than a slogan, decoherence is the machinery that makes it work. Without it, branches are just poetry. With it, you get a concrete reason why you see definite outcomes and stable records without invoking a magic collapse. Start with why this matters. Quantum states prefer superposition, but your life runs on crisp facts. Detectors click, digits settle, memories cohere. Collapse postulates explain that by decree. Decoherence explains it by dynamics. Phase information leaks into the environment so fast that alternatives which could have interfered become effectively non-communicating. Once interference dies, classical-looking histories are the only ones available to creatures like us. Now the what? Decoherence is environment-induced superselection. Certain states, the pointer states, are robust because the system, environment interaction keeps measuring them. A Geiger counter's silent versus clicked, a needle's position. A cat's macroscopic life signs, these are patterns the environment redundantly records. Air molecules, photons, and vibrations scatter off those macrostates, entangle with them, and disperse their delicate relative phases. In the density matrix, off-diagonal terms vanish for all practical observers. Nothing is deleted. The phase is just buried in a billion degrees of freedom you can't get back. Let me stack the logic cleanly. Take a spin in a superposition of up and down. Couple it to a detector that goes U for up and D for down. The joint state becomes a superposition. Up plus U plus down plus D, now let the room do its thing. Photons reflect, air rattles, your retina absorbs. Each interaction copies which outcome into different fragments of the environment. Very quickly, the environmental states correlated with U and D become nearly orthogonal. To make U and D interfere again, you'd have to rewind the detector, the room, your eyes, and the infrared glow leaking into the walls. That means microscopic control over astronomical details. The timescales are brutal. A carefully shielded qubit can hold coherence for microseconds to seconds. A dust grain in sunlight decoheres in about 10⁻31 seconds, effectively instant. Macroscopic pointers snap into clicked, or not almost immediately. The world is constantly measuring itself. That's why classicality isn't a miracle. It's the consequence of unavoidable, continuous monitoring by the environment. Here's the shortcut most people miss. Decoherence picks the bases. You don't get to choose a convenient splitting after the fact. The interaction Hamiltonian does. States that dump the least phase into the environment, localized packets, definite pointer positions, survive. Exotic superpositions smear their phase into the surroundings and get shredded. That's why you experience solid chairs and readable digits, not ghostly furniture and smeared numbers. Now you might be thinking, isn't this just collapse with extra steps? No, collapse removes alternatives. Decoherence keeps all terms, it just prevents them from interfering. In small setups, quantum eraser experiments show this directly. Hide which path information and fringes return. Reveal it and fringes vanish. That's recoherence in miniature. For macroscopic records, recoherence is fantasy-level hard, but the principle is the same. So branches are effectively autonomous, not literally severed. The thing to remember is what decoherence doesn't do. It doesn't change probabilities. It changes accessibility. Born weights amplitude squared. are set by the unitary dynamics before the environment scrambles phase. Decoherence locks those weights into robust records by crushing cross terms. Branching doesn't mint extra survival measure. It parcels existing measure into distinct histories. That's the exact reason the immortality pitch fails. You can't count branches to win. You have to track weights, and decoherence leaves those weights untouched. This also explains objectivity. Quantum Darwinism says the environment redundantly encodes pointer information into many independent fragments, different photons, different patches of air. Lots of observers can sample different slices and still recover the same, the detector click bit. Agreement isn't mystical, it's redundancy. That's how you and I end up with the same facts without comparing notes first. A lab line that nails it. Our job is to stop the universe from measuring our qubit. That's quantum control. Every stray microwave photon is a spy for the environment. The longer you keep those spies out, the longer interference survives. When you can't, decoherence wins and facts become public. Common mistakes to avoid. Treating decoherence as optional. It's ubiquitous. Isolation is the exception. Treating decoherence as probability magic. It's record magic, not weight magic. Picking an arbitrary basis. The environment picks, pointer states win. So how do you use this? Forecast with weights, not wishes. Decoherence guarantees your future continuers read definite records in the pointer basis. The Born rule tells you how much to expect each continuer to show up. And the choices you make, sleep, safer routes, checklists, redundancy, tilt amplitude toward continuers who keep clear records and intact cognition. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Decoherence turns a universal wave function into locally classical histories by killing interference in the pointer basis while leaving Born weights intact. That's the plumbing. It's why lab statistics are stable, why shared facts exist, and why counting miracle branches won't save you from ordinary odds. Personal identity under branching. What is you? We've nailed the plumbing, unitary evolution, entanglement, decoherence, Born weights. Now comes the slippery part. Who is the you that forecasts across branches? If you treat identity like a single, sacred thread, branching feels like a cheat code. Somewhere you live, therefore you live. But that's the metaphysical trap that smuggles immortality back in. The useful move is simpler. Identity is a pattern. Survival is continuity weighted by measure. Start with stakes you can feel. Planning only works if you know what you're protecting. You're not guarding a mystical tag, you're guarding a cognitive pattern, memories, values, attention, judgment, style. That's the you that matters for decisions. In a branching world, multiple continuers can carry that pattern forward. Before the split, you care about all of them in proportion to Born weight. After the split, each continuer just is themselves, reading a definite record. No metaphysical coin flip needed. Here's the key shift. Swap identity talk for continuity budgeting. Pre-branch, you face self-locating uncertainty over which continuer will read your next frame. Rationality demands you allocate care by amplitude squared. That's the same logic that makes lab statistics line up with the Born rule. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Don't count heads. Weight observer moments by measure. Okay, so what counts as a legitimate continuer? High-fidelity inheritance of what you value about your mind. Two dials matter. Fidelity, how strongly memory, values, and cognitive style persist. Weight, how much Born measure flows to that continuum. High fidelity at high weight is the sweet spot. High fidelity at tiny weight is inspiring and unbankable. High weight with wrecked fidelity isn't the win you think it is. A clean example makes it concrete. Say a therapy offers 70% full cognitive recovery, 25% moderate impairment, 5% death. In a branching picture, all three outcomes exist, but your expected experience is dominated by the 70% continuer who still thinks like you. Plan with that weight, and you're already acting like many worlds says you should, protecting the high fidelity, high weight future. Now here's where most people mess up. They try to ride a privileged thread imagining a guaranteed survivor who keeps waking no matter what. Or they count copies. 2 of me means 50-50. Both moves are wrong. There's no blessed filament, and multiplicity without measure is noise. The environment picks the pointer basis. Decoherence makes records definite, and born weights tell you how much future you exists where. There's also a degradation trap. Survival isn't binary. Continuity can thin without death. Concussions, strokes, sleep debt, chronic stress, toxins, isolation. You can leak measure into continuers you wouldn't endorse, confused, impulsive, detached from long-term goals. If you believe a loophole will rescue you, you'll overlook these slow leaks. That's how people drift into worse timelines while technically surviving. The fix is upstream. Protect fidelity and wait together. So how do you operationalize this? Use a 3-part checklist. Define continuers, those who inherit today's memories and values with high fidelity. Weight by physics. Amplitude squared sets expectation. Don't count copies or miracle tales. Protect fidelity. Sleep regularity, cardiorespiratory fitness, blood pressure and lipids, cognitive challenge, social ties. These keep the pattern crisp. Add 2 constraints. Kill correlations. Alcohol plus fatigue plus speed plus rain multiplies failure. Build redundancy. Seatbelts, checklists, backups, second opinions. Independent supports keep continuers on track when one guard fails. Let me land this with 2 quick micro stories. A viewer said, "If there's always a branch where I dodge the car, I'm safe." The correction was simple. Tails exist, typicality rules. They added a helmet, reflective gear, and earlier departures. Near misses dropped. Their high-fidelity continuers got more weight. Another person faced a procedure with real risks. We computed continuity-weighted value and added recovery safeguards that increased both weight and fidelity. Sleep targets, blood pressure control, family support. They didn't bet on a loophole. They bought better continuers. Here's the shortcut nobody teaches. Expected future, U equals born weight times psychological fidelity. Optimize both. When choices trade a tiny bump in weight for a big hit to fidelity, or vice versa, slow down. You're budgeting your future observer moments. One last clarity line. Post-split, each continuer is equally real. The decision problem was upstream, which futures to create, protect, and empower. That's where your agency lives. Forecast with weights, design for fidelity, break risk correlations, and build redundancy. Do that, and you stop fantasizing about miracle branches and start meeting more of yourself in the branches where your mind actually feels like you.